And this, again, is just my personal opinion. I think we're really at a relatively dangerous point, especially when it comes to all this Jack and Jill medicine. And we'll discuss this next time as well, that we really, really, really need to take countermeasures quickly so that this aspect disappears as fast as possible.
Welcome to the Bachata Cafe, a podcast about dance, intimacy, and psychology.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think you will never be able to reach 100% of people. Whenever you play any song, you'll always find someone who doesn't like it. So I think just with the styles we have now, influence, sensual, fusion, or even Zuglieder, which you can dance to in a more Zug style way. Maybe we can dive into that a bit, and maybe I'll throw in a provocative question from my side now, because I often stand on the sidelines and I talk a lot with people and so on. And what I've noticed now, whether it's DJ Husky, DJ York, DJ Khalid, I don't know, Manuel Cito, whatever their names are, the really famous DJs. And I've noticed that you also like to do this at your parties, and I would maybe like to know, and also other people, so I would really like to hear your opinion. So when we come to dance, or at least the people who think the same way, there's always an intro and an outro at the end. And you basically want to experience the whole intro and the whole outro. And lately, there's kind of a trend where the intro and outro are completely cut or faded out so much that you don't really have a proper intro anymore. And also, sometimes in the songs, other tracks are briefly mixed in or teased so that you know what the next song will be. Or sometimes you have two songs that are played as one because musically they fit together in terms of key or whatever the mood is. Maybe you can explain why that's done. Because you said you want to respond to the people, to the vibe, and so on. This is just me personally, and the people I've talked to often think, wow, that's annoying. You're listening to a song and then suddenly there's a switch. Like, oh, now suddenly there's completely different music in between. That kind of throws you off. Or also with the intro, you want to settle in first, connect with the other person, or let the outro fade out nicely. And maybe another topic related to that, with the pauses, having 1 or 2 seconds of silence so you can say, I can now walk to the next person without having to rush after them in a stressed way. Like, where's the next one? Because it always ends without a pause. There's music playing continuously. Maybe you can give a bit of background.
Okay, so there are a lot of different points you just mentioned. And I also think it's very, very different from DJ to DJ. At the end of the day, I can only speak for myself, not for what other DJs do. So I don't see myself in a position to judge or comment on that in any way. Everyone does it the way they think it should be done at the end of the day, whether that's right or not. And kind of tying that in with the topic I mentioned earlier. Being a DJ in bachata music compared to reggaeton, hip hop, R&B, or EDM, and especially in other genres, has an extremely, extremely low barrier to entry. Because at the end of the day, you really only need a single button. You just need the play button to press, and then it plays from start to finish. And then the song ends, and then the next song comes on. More or less, you're basically like Spotify and just hit play. The reason why, especially the more well-known and bigger DJs do it differently is because it's boring. As a DJ, it's super boring to do that. I simply press the play button and continue doing that same thing for 3 hours. Because DJing is actually a creative process. And this creative process consists of 2 creative areas. One is, which songs do I play one after another? How is my set structured? Do I, so to speak, I mean, there are DJs who play all kinds of things, sometimes a fast one, sometimes a slow one. Personally, for example, I would say I try to DJ conceptually. That means I have a certain number of songs that have a certain type of genre, tempo, style, and also evoke certain emotions. And with that, I try, so to speak, to engage people and then lead them to a different feeling. What I do less often is play a fast song, then a slow song, then another fast song, then a fusion track, and then something else. I always try to have a structure in my set so that the dancer also knows what to expect. So they're not constantly surprised, like, okay, it was a fusion song, then comes a Dominican, then another fusion song, and then something else. I also find that very exhausting as a dancer myself, when you can't anticipate at all what's coming next. The second creative aspect is, as a hip hop DJ, or even now as a baguetton DJ and so on, you go much, much further. You actually create completely new music. You take the beat from one song and the vocals from another song, and then you scratch, you change a lot of things. With bachata, you generally can't do that. I try to avoid that. For exactly the reason you mentioned earlier, you dance to the entire song, which doesn't happen in hip hop. In hip hop, it doesn't matter at all. You basically dance for 2 hours and there are like 80 songs and you dance to those. But with bachata, you dance to the entire song because you know the structure of the song, you know where the breaks are, etc. That means as a dancer, you want to enjoy the whole song, so to speak. That's how it is. What I was talking about earlier, what I try to do is I just find that the challenge with bachata music is a bit that you have to adapt the music to the structure of the dance. That means, for example, I always try to make the transition so that the last song ends on 8 and the first song starts on 1. Accordingly, I have also in my own database, I have set 1 as the cue point for all songs, because there are songs that start on 5, there are those that start on 3, and there are songs where something else happens, sometimes up to 6. I always try to match the 1 of one song with the 8 of another song so that as a dancer, it's easy to make this transition. This 2-second pause is just one of those things. Yeah, I try that as a dancer, you want to do that, but it's super boring. And having that break, I think, is just not nice. Instead, I try to create the flow, so to speak, of many songs that blend into each other and then something happens. That something happens. When I started, I was much more strict about that. So I was really immersed in the hip hop and R&B world and tried much more to make transitions. And then I just realized myself that it actually doesn't make any sense. It simply doesn't make sense from a musical concept perspective to make such a transition. That's why I always try to make my transitions without a pause, but in such a way that I say one song is played out fairly strongly, not completely, and then the other song, it starts in such a way that this flow doesn't come to an end. With the intros, everyone is different in that regard too. For example, what I really like to do to achieve what you just mentioned, you want to get into it, you want to arrive with your dance partner, which I also find very important. And by now, I really enjoy working with intros, whether they're unplugged intros, which I've gotten really good at by now. What I often do with songs that lend themselves to it is that the first 15 seconds or so, that's about 32 bars. So an a cappella intro where there's only singing and no beats at all. That also gives you, as a dancer, the time to find a new dance partner, to settle in, and to look, okay, what kind of song is this? And then after these, well, most songs are structured so that, so to speak, that's the intro part. 32 bars, then 64 bars for the first verse, and then another 32 bars. Chorus, ESTRAPP. Most of these pop songs are structured like that. And that works really well. So I can say, okay, I actually use those 32 bars, or sometimes even 16 bars, as an a cappella, so you can get into it and start the dance nicely, and it doesn't just immediately go bam, 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 bam. Other DJs do it differently. And personally, for example, I'm not, because I now really try to see things from the dancer's perspective. I also try to do very little, so to speak, to chop things into the song itself, because that disrupts things. It disrupts the flow of the dance. And so I know that other DJs are different, but for example, I'm someone who says, okay, the dancer should have time to dance to the song, to enjoy it to the fullest. But on the other hand, I'm also there as a DJ and I want to add a little bit of my own touch to it.
If you like this honest perspective, subscribe to Bachata Cafe. Not because I'm asking you to, but because you don't want to miss the next episode. A completely different perspective. Maybe it's because you described it in such detail. You're basically like a doctor of music now, someone who can dissect individual beats, segments, and so on. And you also said that you pay attention to the mood. I often talk about this in the podcast. Dancing is also a bit about psychology. There are a lot of topics that come into play here. And even now in the last few episodes, I've talked a lot about why bachata is so addictive. And one topic or building block of that is, of course, the music. Could you describe that a little bit? Are there any songs or types of music in bachata where you would say they especially lead to a stronger connection because of certain frequencies or the lyrics? After all, it's always about pain, love, drama, passion. Do you also try to use that to control the crowd a little bit? Because you said that you try to pick up on the mood, the vibe. That would be my first question. And the second question that follows would be, would you also be able to recognize on the dance floor, for example, when two people are getting to know each other better or flirting, or when a deep connection is forming, where you could say, oh, they might become a couple?
On the first point, regarding this psychology topic, there is, well, I also play a bit of piano. And when you are playing with a piano, you will find that all the different chords are a very important and fundamental part of the instrument. And if you decide to spend some significant time studying music theory, you will very, very quickly come across the fascinating fact that there are certain specific chords and complex chord progressions that, I would say, naturally evoke certain deep emotions within the listener. For example, a song that was composed in D tends to be a bit more melancholic than a song composed in C. Those are, I think, the basics, the foundation. I have to honestly admit, I don't go so far as to, well, I see in my DJ app, I always see the key of the song. I know whether it's an F minor, a D major, or a C sharp song, I can see that. But personally, I don't go and choose the song based on its key. You can also change the key in DJ apps. For example, I can go up or down an octave, or I can just change the key. I actually don't do that because I think it just goes too far. And often you can't do it exactly to 100 cents either. And sometimes it's just wrong then too. But of course, there are songs that, because of their composition, evoke a different emotional response than other songs. I think that's the most important thing. An example of that would be Casablanca. I think that's a song that most people would find very emotional, or Sabanas Blancas as well. I think that's also because these are songs where the vocals are very much in the foreground. And in the background, there are also these certain chord progressions which are used very often in pop music. In ballads, there are these so-called ballad chords, and they're used there as well. And these emotions are also evoked accordingly. I think that for most people, a similar emotion is triggered when you play Casablanca as when you, I don't know, play some other fast party song. On to the second point, I think that so speaking as a dancer now, just to be very clear, as a dancer, what you're looking for is that magic moment when you dance with someone. You've never seen this person before in your life. And then you start dancing and you feel as if you and this person have known each other your whole lives. Every single movement you make, the other person makes as well. It's perfectly in sync with each other. You give each other exactly as much pressure and counter pressure as the other expects, as is expected. And suddenly you think, oh my God, what an incredible feeling. And that's also what makes it so addictive. I would say the search for this moment of trust is what drives most dancers. You keep going out dancing. You keep going to all those vibrant new festivals, always searching for that perfect moment, just to find that deeply trusting, truly intimate song or dance partner with whom you can feel that profound and special connection. Whether it's on the dance floor, if two people dance together for 8 songs, you can assume, okay, they probably like each other. But whether they'll actually become a couple, of course, you never know. But you also often see that, okay, those two, they've spent the last 30 minutes together dancing with each other. So, okay, they probably don't find each other all that bad. And they'll probably enjoy these dances a bit more than dances with other people.
Yeah, that's true. Interesting. Maybe let's take a moment to go deeper into the point you just mentioned. Connection. You said that everyone is looking for this trust, this connection. I think that's a very interesting topic. And you have, let's say, seen and experienced so much over the years now. Would you actually say that things have changed a bit at Chateau as well? I always like to talk about seeking performance versus seeking connection. What's your perspective on that? Basically, what's the current state of things? And what was it like in the past? For example, did people used to dance with more connection and now everyone is just focused on performance? Or is it maybe the other way around?
So just this past weekend, we had a very interesting conversation about this with some artists, organizers, and other people. And this is, again, just my personal opinion. I think we're really at a relatively dangerous point right now. What this whole Jack and Jill thing is doing, before the era of Jack and Jill, so to speak, dancing was purely an end in itself. I went there to dance. And the reason I went was to dance. There was no other reason that went beyond just dancing. Jack and Jills have, in a way, expanded the whole thing a bit, because now there is something you can achieve beyond just dancing. You can win a tournament, you get a trophy, whatever it may be. The problem with this is that many people who have been dancing for a while and have suddenly discovered this challenge for themselves now see this challenge as the reason for dancing. Why do I go dancing? Because I want to practice so I can win the next Jack and Jill. And that goes against what dancing is actually about, because it's called social dancing after all. No one has ever danced social hip hop, because hip hop is about going as part of a group or as an individual and delivering a performance to show what you can do with your hip hop. With bachata, with salsa, with zouk, and with other dance styles that have this social aspect, it's not about the dancing itself at all. That's why it's called social dance. It means the social aspect is at the forefront. I usually go there to dance with many other people I don't even know, just to have a really good time and to build some meaningful new connections. And unfortunately, the Jack and Jills have taken things in a direction where a lot of people say, no, I go there to perform, to do my fair and performance exercises. This weekend at the festival, I actually had 2 dances with 2 girls. They didn't dance with me. They danced to show off how well they could hear, recognize, and repeat every single break, every single instrument. And there was one of the artists who joked that she should have just gone to the bar to get a Coke. She was busy enough just showing off everything she could do anyway. And in those dances, I didn't feel anything at all, because I knew exactly that she wasn't there to dance with me. She was there to practice her performance. And it was just by chance that I happened to be her partner at that moment. And there are also some major meetings of organizers happening in the background. Big festivals from Europe are involved. They meet online, let's say once a month, to discuss these things. And next time we will also talk about how we need to act very, very, very quickly to counter this, so that this aspect disappears again as fast as possible. And for example, like at SUG, that individual dancers are no longer judged, but only couples are evaluated. And when you judge couples, you basically have to elevate your partner, your dance partner, to the podium. You have to do something together with your dance partner in order to win as a couple. That means you have to build a connection. And now, just standing there and hitting some beats or breaks, that won't be rewarded anymore. What gets rewarded is that, as a good dancer, you and your partner deliver a good dance together. And I completely agree with you, and I think we need to do something about this very, very quickly. Otherwise, we'll lose the essence of bachata. And then people will stop going out to dance bachata because they just won't feel like it anymore. Because, at, let's say, a typical bachata event, there are about 2,000 people and only 200 people participated in the Jokajil. And probably only half of them participated seriously. That means you're scaring off 1,900 people just because 100 people want to perform. And that's not the point of it all.
If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a dancer from your bachata community. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on today's topic. And if you want to learn more about bachata, connection, and psychology, follow Bachata Cafe. If you want to be part of the Bachata Cafe community, we'll see each other on the dance floor.